Good evening. My name is Lizette Wells. I am a student of Professor Kenyatta and Professor Hill. I firmly believe when you're supposed to do something and you don't do it, the Lord makes a way for you to do it. Congressman Cummings isn't my congressman, but I had a yearning to reach out to him. And then Professor Kenyatta put a challenge towards me to offer Congressman Cummings to join us. And I extended the invitation, and I'm very thankful that he accepted that invitation. Just a little bit about the gentleman who I'm about to introduce. He was born and raised in Baltimore City, Maryland, where he still resides today. He obtained his bachelor's degree in political science from Howard University, serving as student government and president and graduating Phi Beta Kappa. And he graduated from the University of Maryland School of Law. He began his career of public service in the Maryland House of Delegates, where he served for 16 years and became the first African American in history to be named Speaker pro tem. First sworn in as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives in 1996, Congressman Cummings has proudly served Maryland's 7th district for 7 terms. He is a senior member of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. He is also a senior member of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, as well as a former chairman and a current member of the Congressional Black Caucus. And he is a co-founder and a chairman of the Congressional Caucus on Drug Policy. During the 111th Congress, he has been a leading advocate for federal initiatives to stimulate the economy, to promote sound and affordable health care, in addition to increase federal support for college education. He is also a very active member of the New Psalmist Baptist Church. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't take lightly again that this gentleman has accepted my invitation to join us tonight. I introduce you to the wonderful and the honorable Congressman Cummings.
I want to make sure that I say within your program. And I want to thank Ms. Lizette Wells for inviting me. I am a very spiritual being. And my staff will tell you I get probably at least somewhere in the area of 50 invitations a day to speak all over the country. And for some reason, Walter, when I got the request from Ms. Wells, my spirit told me to show her the power of simply asking. I did not know her, but I wanted my spirit to show her the power of simply asking. And so I am honored to be here tonight, and I am very pleased that you've taken time out to honor all of these wonderful folks, some of whom I know. Your honorees, I think that it's just great. I think it's important for us to honor people. So often we are so into me, myself, and I, that we forget that there are so many people like the Walter Deans of the world who are examples for us, and sometimes they never even know how they affect our lives. But as a young, aspiring politician, I remember Walter Dean because he was in the Maryland legislature. And I wanted to be like Walter. Didn't want to be like Mike, just wanted to be like Walter. And I thank God that our lives have eclipsed. And so I want to talk about some things because I I have so much. I'm sitting here just scribbling. You know, I feel stuff, and so I have to say what I feel. And when Dr. Bushner was talking, I could not help but think about my own life. And be reminded the other day of when Friday night, as a graduate of Howard University, I go to Howard's graduation every year, and then they have a dinner before the graduation the night before. And a young man came up to me and said, Mr. Cummings, you came to Howard 5 years ago and spoke. And he said that day, it just so happened that my mama and my daddy and I, we were visiting Howard, trying to figure out what college I would go to. And he said, you gave a speech and you talked about your life. And he said, and the fact that you came to Howard University, I said I wanted to be like you. And with tears in his eyes, he said, not only did you affect me, but I went back and told my boys. And he said, I'm going to go get them because they're here tonight. And he brought back 5 guys. And he said, all of us are graduating tomorrow. You never know. You never know how you may impact another person's life. And to our honorees, I thank you for impacting so many lives. And you know, the thing that we're supposed to be talking about tonight is community service and the significance of it for students and for the community. Community service is so important because I learned, and volunteering is very important because I learned it. I wouldn't be here if it were not for volunteering and community service. I wouldn't be here. I know I wouldn't. Because the way I got my political life started, a lot of people think that I was a part of some big organization. And Walter Dean will tell you, I was basically alone. And what happened is, after I got out of law school, my spirit told me, and I'm going to break this down in a minute. My spirit said to me, now that you passed the bar, Elijah, why don't you turn around and help some other people try to pass the bar exam. I set up a bar exam course of my own. And keep in mind now, the piece I haven't told you is I was a former special ed kid. A mom and daddy who only had a 2nd grade education. When I hear people making excuses about what can't be done because who they were born to and where they were born, I don't even want to hear it. Oh man, I can't do that, man. I'm born in poverty. Oh, the system got me down. I get tired of it. Folks making excuses for every single thing under the sun. But anyway, that's another speech. And so what happened is I established that course, Walter, and we had something like a 90% pass rate. I was helping black students, because back then black students were flunking the bar exam at 90% rate. But I had like a 90% pass rate. Why? Because I think I could relate to the students. I'd sit down with them. I could break it down. They would listen to me. They did not feel like I was thinking that I was better than them. And I could understand, I could relate to them from where I have come, the distance I have gone, the travels I've been through. And this is the piece that a lot of people don't know. People ask me the question all the time, how'd you get in politics? A woman named Lena Lee, at that time was in the Maryland legislature. I did not know Lena Lee. If Lena Lee came past here right now, I wouldn't have known her. And she called me one day and said, Mr. Cummings? Walter knew her. Said, Mr. Cummings? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I need to meet with you. I don't even know this lady. So I went and come to find out she lived about a block away from me. So I went down there, and I didn't know whether it was a setup or what. And she said, then she went through this long story. She said, I'm the only black female lawyer in the legislature. And I'm looking for, she said, I'm very sick. And I do believe I don't have long. The Lord's going to take me soon. And I really am looking for a female black lawyer to take my place. And I said, okay, so why are you here? I mean, what you talking to me for? She said, I haven't been able to find a female lawyer, but you'll do. And you remember me. And but then I wanted to know, why did you pick me? Out of all the people that you could have picked and you could have come to, why did you pick me? You don't know me. Is it because I'm a graduate of a historically black college? Is it because I live in your neighborhood? Is it because I'm a lawyer? She said, the reason why I picked you is because I heard about that program that you have where you help lawyers. And she said, I figured that if you can volunteer your time and help lawyers become lawyers, you're the kind of person that I want to serve in the Maryland General Assembly. That's how I got started in politics. She got out of her sick bed, she introduced me to the Mitchell family, and got Larry Young, got out of her sick bed, raised money for me. I have a picture on every desk at home, in my 3 offices, I got her picture. Why? Because she meant that much to me. Now, fast forward. Lena Lee, about 3 years ago, one of the things that I wanted to do was honor her by naming a post office after her. That's one of the greatest things you can do for a person in the Congress. And so, and usually you have to name it after they're dead, which I think is crazy. So I decided to do a post office for Lena Lee. We did it. And Lena came to the library. Must have about 500-600 people down at the library downtown. And she came on a Friday night, I'll never forget it. And she came and she was just as clear as I am today. And she stood up for half an hour and spoke. And one of the things that Lena Lee said during her speech, Walter, she said, you know, I brought Elijah along screaming and kicking. He really didn't want to go and be no politician. But I brought him along. I pulled him, y'all. She said, but let me tell you something. If I had known that I was going to live another 30 years, I wouldn't have given up my seat so fast. Why do I tell this story? Because it was out of community service. It was out of giving something back. It was about empowering other people. That's what she saw. And if you really think about what I just said, and then I'm just going to break this down in 3 parts, and then I'm finished. But why is community service so significant in giving back? First of all, one of the things that I've noticed about people who achieve great things and the type of people that you're honoring here today, first of all, they have a sense of bigger than me. You know, they have that idea, it's bigger than me. In other words, when they do things, it's not simply to do a job, it's because they believe that there's something bigger than them. They have decided that they want to be a part of something that may not bring them credit. They realize that they may not be thanked. They realize that they may not, nobody may mention them on WBAL, and they definitely won't make the Washington Post, or they won't make the Afro. They realize that. But they do it because they believe that is basically something that they must do to make society a better place to live. They believe that it's bigger than them. And if you really think about it, that's a very important concept because, you know, sometimes I look and I see how people get so caught up in small stuff. I used to practice law, and I see how people would kill each other over stupid stuff. The first cases I had was a man who came home, and his wife had not taken the pork out of the pork and beans. That was his thing. He wanted the pork out of the pork and beans. Listen to what I'm saying? He wanted the pork out of the pork and beans. It's a true story. And he, in front of his 7-year-old child, he killed his wife because she did not take the pork out of the pork and beans. We know that there were other issues underlying that, but that's what he said. And that's what he was arguing about. You better take the pork out of the pork and beans, and shot and killed her. That's the point. The first cases and I was representing the family of a little girl, trying to make sure that she got guardianship. They got guardianship. So the bigger than you concept is so important, because when you believe in something bigger than you, you don't have time to deal with the small stuff. You really don't. When Joe Wilson hollered out, "You liar," on the floor of the House, which I had never seen before, and I've been there 14 years and been at every speech that the president has ever made. I've never seen anything like that. And the next morning, Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe asked me before a national audience, "Elijah, aren't you upset about the fact that Joe Wilson called the president a lie? And we know the president is your friend." I said, "Yeah, the president is my friend." And I said, "Yeah, that does upset me. It does bother me that this man called the president a liar." I said, but I refuse to get caught up in that. I can't give that too much mental time. I said, Joe Wilson been saying them kind of things probably since he was 3 years old. And I said, he's 50 years old now. And I'm not gonna change him. But I said, every morning when I get up out of my bed and I'll go walking around the block, I see a man sitting on his steps, sits up the street from me, who was a former employee of the city of Baltimore, who is now suffering from cancer. And that man has to go out and scrap, he's on disability, and he has to collect some kind of way enough money to pay the $500 every 3 weeks as a copay on his, for his chemo. I said, I have to spend my time helping him. I don't have time to be distracted by Joe Wilson. I can't change him, but I can change things to make this man's life better. People who the honorees that you honor tonight are people that understand that. They understand they don't have time to get distracted about stupid stuff. They realize it. And if we are to get anywhere as a people, as a society, we have to have people who think bigger than me. Number two, there must always be a sense of urgency. Every time, I'm telling you, when I look at my life, and I know some of you all can relate to what I'm about to say. I'm almost 60 years old. And I declare, it feels like the last 30 years have gone by like that. It's scary. Don't act like y'all don't know what I'm talking about. You all who are younger people, believe me, that time will go by fast. Particularly if you're doing things that are important and that have deadlines associated with them. Because that means you're always dealing with deadlines. And so you're valuing time, and time is just going by very fast. The reason why I mention a sense of urgency is because our honorees understand that not only must they see things as bigger than themselves, but they realize that they must act, and they must act now. They must act, and they must act now. They must act, and they must act now. Let me tell you a little story about not acting now. My daughter, who is now 27 years old, called me the other day and said, Dad, I really need you to get that toy box, out of the basement. I said, what toy box? She said, well, the toy box, we're going to give it to my cousin, Shirley, just had a baby, and I want to give her that toy box. I said, what toy box? She said, the toy box you gave me when I was 4 years old. I said, oh, what? The toy box? She said, the one that is still in the box that you never put together? The one she said, it's over there in the corner. She said, I'm gonna wrap it up and I'm gonna give it to her because she's gonna use it. Her husband will put it together. You didn't put it together, but I didn't put it together. And it's gonna be a nice gift, and it's all brand new because you never did open the box. But I thought about it and I said, that was 20-something years ago, and that toy box has sat there. Can sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
My daughter, therefore, was deprived of her toy box.
That's right.
That may sound like a simple thing, but she was deprived of her toy box that I could have taken a half an hour to put together, but I kept on putting it off, and 20-something years have gone by, and now I'm giving it to a new generation of Cummings. A box that was never opened. But let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of us that got boxes that have never been opened. Never been opened. We've put off things over and over again. We've used every excuse under the sun. It's going to be too hard. It's going to take too long. My boyfriend ain't going to like me if I do that. Oh, God. Can I dwell there for a moment? One of the things that we got people, the honorees that you have here tonight, have surrounded themselves, and even the ones I don't know, I would bet any amount of money, they have surrounded themselves with people who support their mission. They couldn't do it if they didn't. I always tell my wife, I said, I can do bad by myself. Why am I saying this? I gotta say this to our young people. This is the young people, old people that are young. Too many people get hung up with the wrong people. And I know y'all didn't expect to hear that, but too many people get hung up with the wrong people, and the wrong people can stop you from getting to where you want to go. I remember there was a time, Walter, I was dating this girl, and she would call me in the morning. She could mess up my day for 3 days. In 5 minutes. I'm sorry, y'all laughing. Some of y'all been there too. Say something to you that mess up your day, make you unproductive. You can barely function. You're sitting in the algebra class, don't even know if the 3 from the 7. Confused. What we have to do, and I know this is just like a footnote I'm just giving you about the people that you're honoring tonight, they have figured out a way to surround themselves with people who support their dreams. There are, the last time I spoke here for a graduation, doctor, I spoke at a graduation, and during the graduation I said something like this. I said, I admire you all so much because I know some of y'all have been through some very, very difficult things. You had to borrow money, you had the babysitter didn't show up, And there was a young lady right there about in the middle, she started crying. And she had me boo-hoo, and I thought I had to stop the speech. And after the speech, I went up to her, and I said, why are you crying? She says, because there's nobody here for me. She said, well, and I said, don't you have some significant people in your life? She said, well, the guy that I'm dating, I could not tell him that I was in school because it would mess him up. So he doesn't even know I'm graduating. I said, there's something wrong with that. And it's not just, it's just not guys. Sometimes women can have a negative effect upon the dreams of men. And when people need to be working together to lift up each other, but do you see how this is going full circle? Going back to the first point, if you're not caught up in a big thing, in something bigger than you, and of course bigger than you, then you get caught up in the small stuff, and then the small stuff causes you to block somebody else's dream. So, number one, they have a sense of bigger than me. 2, they have a sense of urgency. 3, they have a sense of discipline. Discipline is so important.
Yes, sir.
Let me show you how I practice discipline. You ever walking around your house and some little voice comes to you and say, what are them plants? What are them plants? Or, up them clothes. Hang them up. Come on now. And what I've begun to do in my life, took me a while to get here. I start when I hear the voices, I go in and do it. I'm serious. I practice my butt off. Sometimes I'm walking by the plants and like the plants call, hey, Magic. You know water outside? I run and put the water in there, but then it's done.
That's right, done.
It's done. One of the things that my pastor, Reverend Dr. Thomas, Walter Smith Thomas, says about going to college. And I love this so much because it makes so much sense. He says it's not just about what you learn. Hello? He said it's about starting something and finishing it. How many of us have things that we have started, but we have never finished it? Starting something and just simply finishing it. Be it a paper that we got to do. Be it a project that we got to do. And then we look back at our lives and we've got all of these things, these unfinished things, and wonder why we feel so frustrated. The people that we honor tonight are about discipline. They figure out, how do I make a way to get this thing done? But as you can imagine, all of these things are put up there together. They're all intertwined, the three things that I just mentioned. And they sort of depend upon one another. Bigger than you, making sure that you have a sense of urgency, and being disciplined.